Hello, everyone. Welcome to the All of Life podcast. It is good to be with you today. It's Warren here, joined by John and Jim as usual. It's good to be back here. Looking forward to diving into a whole new bunch of topics and things that have just been on our mind during this summer season. If you're here in Tempe or in Arizona, you know that we are in summer, right? I think today the temperature is going to be 107. And so it's actually been pretty nice. You know, like it's actually been bearable. That's a part of just the conditioning that happens when you live in Arizona. You start to like take 90 degrees. It's just kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's been good. Hopefully you have been, if you're here at Redemption Tempe, just engaging in this season of worship and wisdom, being able to see God in all of creation as you rest and travel and all those things, and just that even as you reflect, as you take this summer to think about things and reflect on life, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of that, and that His way, His desires are informing all the ways you're thinking about the big questions you have. So today, here's what we want to do. Should we do top of mind stuff, or kind of today's episode is kind of like a whole
one big top of mind?
Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do today. Today's episode is essentially one big top of mind things. I think I like it a lot because, you know, there's often a lot that we do as pastors that have to do with just our roles here and the things that we're studying. Like, you know, obviously we're in the Bible, we're in Scripture, we're looking at theology, we're reading about topics of our days. But the reality is, like, we're whole people. And there are also like other things that we're interested in. And I think as we explore these other areas, there's a lot that informs sometimes how we're teaching and thinking about things in other areas. And so today we're going to have just an opportunity to talk about some of those things that have been on our mind that we've been diving into, and just kind of talk about why we're exploring it and how maybe we're seeing like the all of life, being all for Jesus, like in these different areas we've been exploring. And so, should we do the topics? Should we like say the topics first, or just dive into them one by one? What do you think?
Say them.
Yeah,
Say them. All right. So here are the three areas. It's buildings, it's baseball, and
barbecue.
Sorry,
I can do baseball if you want.
Come on, how could you mistake this guy?
Sorry.
Yeah.
One thing.
Baseball's always at the top of my mind. Buildings, barbecue, and
The beach.
The beach.
The beach.
The beach. The beach.
Yeah.
All right. So which one do you want to get into first?
Well, here's the thing.
Sure.
I would love to hear on buildings first. But if I could set it up,
Do it.
by just kind of pointing people to a scripture that I don't think that they have most people have ever referenced. But it's Isaiah 28, 23 through 29.
Okay.
And I think that this is just to give some scripture to validate what we're doing here.
That's right.
But there is something true to this.
Yeah.
There is that it's the idea that God has built wisdom into the various aspects of his world.
Amen.
And that when you study how those things work well, often you are discovering the way that God made the world to work, and ultimately discovering the wisdom with which he baked into creation. So there are a lot of places you could look at that, but one of them I love is Isaiah 28, 23 through 29. It says, "Give ear and hear my voice. Give attention and hear my speech. Does he who plows for sowing plow continually?" So he's getting into the agricultural world here, and he's going to describe these agricultural processes. Does he continually harrow in his ground? When he has leveled his surface, does he not scatter dill, sow cumin, and put wheat and rows and barley in its proper place and emmer at its border? And I don't know, it's asking this as if you're like, you would know.
Right.
Obviously, you put emmer at the border. But it's all this stuff that is the way good agriculture works. And then it says, for he is rightly instructed, farmers are rightly instructed, for his God teaches him. And so it's this idea that the farmer's out in the field and he's learning that, put emmer in the border and you sow the cumin and you level the surface. And as he's learning how the soil works, who's teaching him? God's teaching him. And so as we've been looking at these different parts of life, buildings, barbecue,
Yeah.
the beach, like, how is God teaching us as we're engaging in that? So I've been inspired by the way
That's
that
good. Yeah.
I've really been inspired by the way that you have been looking at buildings.
Sure.
So I would love to start first. Like, what's God teaching you there?
Yeah, absolutely. And so just a little bit of a backstory. I think I've mentioned him on this podcast before. One of my favorite authors, podcasters, his name is Morgan Housel. And he's not a Christian, but I think his approach to learning and how he thinks about the world, I think actually reflects the passage you just read, right?
Yeah.
He's a finance guy, but he looks at other parts of the world and he goes, hey, there are just some things that you can observe in how the world works that teaches us like timeless things about wisdom and financing and all this stuff. And so he mentioned somewhere along in one of the episodes, I don't even remember what it was about, but he mentioned this book called How Buildings Learn. And the reason why he mentioned it is he said, hey, how many of you guys listening to this would love to live in a Frank Lloyd Wright house, right? This is Frank Lloyd Wright, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, I bet all you guys were like, yeah, right? Like, the houses are great. They're amazing. They're these like beautiful architectural masterpieces. He said, but here's the thing about those homes. They all leak like crazy. Right? And he was like, the reason why they leak is because they basically reject the foundational things that we have learned over time that make buildings work. Right? And so they might be beautiful. The roof might be angled or flat in this beautiful way that you go, this is aesthetically pleasing, but that thing is going to be leaking like crazy. And what good is a house if the roof's always leaking?
Yeah, right.
Right? And so he's going, okay, there are these timeless things that we have learned over time that, like, man, it would be foolish to reject them for the sake of design, for the sake of aesthetics, right? And so just him mentioning that book, I was like, wow, that's like really fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? I never knew that about buildings. And so I think the biggest takeaway that I had from the book was just how he talks about how buildings can teach us about change. Because he says that buildings teach us that change happens in 6 layers. And I'll go through this really quickly. First way he says is the site. And that is essentially what is happening around a building. We did this as a staff, and one of the pictures I shown was a church that's like an older style church, but what surrounds it are these new huge skyscrapers, right? And there's this reality of like the church has stayed the same, but everything around it has changed, right? And so as you're thinking about that, or as I'm thinking about that, I'm thinking of like, okay, even as we think about ministry or whatever your sphere of influence is, what's the environment that's happening around it, right? And what are the parts of you that you want to go, hey, we're going to stay the same, even though all this stuff has changed around it? Or what are the parts that we go, hey, this is changing, and so we want to adapt, to some of the changes that are happening? That's first layer. Second layer is structure, and that is the structure of a building, the foundation, the bones of the building. And I think where I equate that to is like the core mission, the core theology that you have as part of an organization. Next layer is skin. Branding, appearance. Then he would go services. That's like the systems, the technology of the building. Next layer is the space plan. That's like the structure, the hiring, org charts, that sort of stuff. And then lastly is the stuff, which is the easiest part to move. That's like furniture, we would say tools, events. And I found that to be really helpful because I think what it has taught me is to go, okay, when I hear a problem or I see a problem happening, to go, what layer is it actually occurring?
Ooh, yeah, that's good.
Is it a structural problem? Or is it a skin problem? Right? Like, am I trying to fix something that's like wrong with the bones and foundation by updating our outward appearance? Right?
Yeah.
Am I trying to move stuff around? Like, on a calendar, when really it's because our systems are broken. And so I think just being able to have that as a framework to go, okay, this is how buildings work, and I think there's a lot of parallels to organizations as well.
So would you say organizations, and would you say that same process could be applied to families, could be applied to
Totally.
Individuals even.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you can make parallels,
Okay, yeah.
To your individual life, family life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Can I propose
Do
a
it.
problem, and we could take it through
Let's
there?
do it.
So, I mean, John, what would you say? You spend a lot of time with people. What are the main problems that people are wrestling with, like, in their families, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, kind of depends on the age of the kids, but one is navigating technology in the home.
Okay, yeah, that's a great one.
It's a huge
And
one.
I think that probably
a good
applies
one.
even to singles with some roommates. That's
Yeah.
probably an issue as
Yeah.
Yeah.
well. Navigating technology.
Totally.
All right, so if you could walk us through the...
Yeah, I think like if you think about that from a site level, there's this reality that we live in a technological world,
Right,
right? And so I guess you could either go, hey, I'm just going to reject this
yeah.
and be totally have a life void of technology.
But what you're saying is profound, because I think a lot of times people's approach to it is to say, well, do you remember in the 90s when you could just like go out and play in the street and you didn't have to do that?
Yeah.
It's like, and so the
Totally.
idea is go act like they did in the 90s. back
Right.
then. But you can't do that
You
because
can't
the
do
whole
that.
site
The
has
whole
changed.
site has changed.
Yeah.
Right? And if you do make a decision to reject it all, like, man, it's going to probably have a lot of adverse effects with where the world is today.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can, but
You
you have to
can.
do it deliberately,
Right.
Because it necessitates that other people
Yeah.
haven't necessarily done the same thing.
Totally.
So
Totally.
if I want to coordinate all of my, all of the events that I go to
Yeah.
through, sending an e-vite
Exactly.
or something like
Send
that.
it a letter.
Just
Yeah.
send a letter,
Yeah.
like a handwritten,
Yeah.
whatever. Other people aren't functioning in that
That's
way.
right.
Or just call someone up. Honestly, this is the way I exist in this world. I'd much prefer a phone call
Sure.
to call somebody up. I feel like it's a more human way of
Communicating,
interacting.
yeah.
But every time I call people, get clench up because they're afraid. They're like, I don't know what to do. There's people calling me, And so you have to like.
Yeah, it's so true.
I can't make this rule that I just communicate through phone calls, because we all have to make that rule.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, there's a site thing.
Yeah.
All right, you go to structure now. I think something that could be structural there is like, well, what is your theology around technology, right? Like, what is your family's, what are the core things that you have named about your family about, like, this is who we are, right? And so technology is going to fit into this.
Yeah.
Versus technology just being used unintentionally, not thought about, and then it like shapes your whole family.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, at its core, sometimes we've adopted the mindset of the world
Right.
that says your whole purpose in life is to just get as much fun as you possibly want.
Yeah.
And so if there's something fun on here, you should just do it.
Yeah. So, all right, these next ones might be a little harder, but we'll see.
Let's see.
We'll go for it.
Yeah. All right. So skin, he named that as like branding appearance, right? Like does the outside match the inside?
That's interesting. If you took it outside of just purely branding,
Sure.
I guess,
Well, it could.
Yeah, what do you got?
One could be the, and I know that this is the furniture one, though, that I was going to talk about, but I think it could apply when you're
Sure.
talking about technology in the home. But is the way in which your dwelling place is branded.
Oh,
Like, is it like the most tech savvy,
that's good.
or is it, for instance, the central place of the home is the table?
that's a great
Dude,
point.
that's a
You know?
great
Yeah.
point.
Or is there like a music room instead of like a video gaming tech room,
Dude,
Yeah.
that is so good.
It's like a lot of people
man.
actually have like gaming rooms in their house.
Dude, okay,
You know?
you really made me think about this because look, sometimes we'll go, okay, we don't want technology to be the main focus of the house, but it's like right in the center of the biggest room of the house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, and that's my family too. But like, you know, like I don't think I think you bypass that layer.
Or it could be
Very
the
often.
exterior too. I mean, some people got the most like
That's true,
Google
man.
Home everything outside their house, you know, and I've been there, and you're like, oh wow, this is
So like there's a pedagogy of place.
Sure.
It's that the place is actually teaching you something about how to dwell within that place.
yeah.
And if you go into a room, a living room, this is a problem that Jenny and I actually had with technology, is that our living room used to have the TV as the center.
Sure.
And there's no comfortable places where two people could reasonably have a conversation with each other sitting down, but it all faced the TV.
Yeah.
And so if you're just mindlessly operating in the room, it orients you towards.
That's fair.
That's good.
That's
TV.
fair.
That's good.
All right, let's keep going. Services. So that's systems, techs, tools. I think one of the things that this could be impacted by is like what tools do we have for entertainment that go beyond technology? What are other ways that we connect that go beyond just technology? And then I would even go, what are the ways that we maybe communicate on technology too? Like, how do we do? I think one of the downfalls that I have is like, I texted my wife I'll text Jordan, and she's like, text me a long thing, and I just go, okay, we're cool. You know, and like, is there like ways that we want to, this is a phone call, this is a text, this is a, you know what I mean? And how are we using our system of communication when it comes to technology?
That's good. That's good.
All right, I'll keep going. Space plan, I feel like actually that's kind of what you were talking about too, Jim.
Yeah.
Who, you know, that's like this team structure it says here, and then lastly is just stuff. Like, what types of technology are we gonna have? What are we gonna accept, reject?
Yeah.
You know?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that the Amish have going for them is that they always say with the new technology that we want to wait it out and just see what the impact is. And then over time, they communally decide, is this something we want to accept or reject? Now, I think they might be waiting a little too long on some technologies.
I think the car is pretty safe now.
Yeah. Well,
now you just got to decide if you want someone driving the car or if you want a self-driving car.
Dude, I was in Amish country once, and just outside of it in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
There was you'd see black cars everywhere, and I guess at some point, some denomination of Amish had decided it is okay for us to have cars, but you shouldn't have all the colorful cars because that's kind of a worldly,
like prideful thing.
I agree with that.
So they
keep it black.
So they all had black cars, but then they would like have like these souped up sound systems and like lights under the because there's nothing that was said specifically against that, but it had to be black. This is like the next generation, the next generation after that. So you missed the heart of it.
Dang, that's crazy.
But it wasn't. So you could go overboard. Cool. You could miss it. You miss the heart of it. But just the idea of saying, just because something new does exist doesn't mean I have to embrace it right away.
Totally.
Might want to just wait and see how it works out.
Yeah. So anyway, that's some of the wisdom from Buildings. If you want to get the book, it's great. It's called How Buildings Learn by Stuart Brand. So
you getting
it's great.
Kickbacks?
I'm getting a little kick. No, I'm just playing. Book's been out for like 40 years. I think he's good. I think he's covered. All right. So which one do we want to do next? Barbecue or the beach? The beach. Go ahead, John. Take it away.
Hang on. I gotta pull up my notes here because I've been. So the beach is a deeply meaningful place for me. Grew up going to the beach every summer, so there's a nostalgia to it. My family takes a family trip to Newport Beach, California every summer. We're leaving on Saturday, so I'm thinking about beaches that much more. I proposed to Marika at the beach. And there's a lot of just like deep, meaningful memories. And then I look forward to the summer. This trip specifically, some of the sweetest times with the Lord come through just morning walks, the overcast June gloom over there. And I'll walk on the beach for several miles, couple hours, even early in the morning, and there's no hurry. So it's great. And so I've got like a prayer rhythm that I do at the beach. And because of the every summer routine, morning walks on the beach, one of the things that haunts me but also causes me to reflect is there is something that never ceases at the beach, and it is waves crash, right? And so there's this haunting sound that you can't ever get away from, but it's also incredibly peaceful, right? It's like people sleep to that.
It's true.
But it's caused me to reflect a lot on the tide coming in and out and how the beach changes. And so one of the things that's fascinating is when the waves come and crash on the shore is a liminal space. It's this space in between where the sea meets the land.
Right.
And what ends up happening is if you ever just look at the beach one day for an hour or something like that, you won't notice the change. If you, over the course of a week, walk the exact same path, which is usually what I do, you begin to see that the beach changes. And if you observe it for a longer period of time, a month or a year, you realize the beach changes because of erosion. And I think there's incredible wisdom to be learned from the slow, seemingly imperceivable change of a grain of sand that moves.
Wow.
And
that's good, man. Yeah.
I think what happens is we oftentimes, when it comes to change, or when we talk about transformation, right, the waves are transforming the shore, is we want eruption and not erosion. And the erosion is this small, subtle, seemingly change that transforms you. But the eruption is like the Mount St. Helens moment of like, boom, this massive moment of like the volcano just erupted and I'm different or my life's changed. And I feel like when you look at how God works, more often than not, he works in the small,
that's right,
seemingly imperceivable ways of erosion. And eroding the parts of our lives
that's good.
that don't ultimately look like Christ. And you see that it's the small things that we overlook, that God actually loves to work through small things. And you see this. Jesus says there's this parable of the mustard seed. And the kingdom's like a mustard seed. And you see that the Savior was an embryo that then in the womb turned into a baby, full-grown man who's our Savior. And then you see even with the disciples and the apostles early on in Acts, it's like this little nucleus of 12, and then boom, there's this explosion. And God does sometimes work in these miraculous big waves, but he always has chosen a very small, slow way. And the reason why I'm thinking about this is the Abraham series that we're in, of like going back to this promise. Like, God is not in a hurry.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And I feel like so often it's like the shore. And there's this, thousands of years ago, he picked this one dude to work through this family. And he still hasn't ended the story. Like, we know how the story is going to end, but he's not in a hurry. And
so if I can just...
Dude, that's really good, man.
So some of the connection it feels like you're making is what happens in this instantaneous moment of Pentecost, we think is like God just doing the microwave thing, just in a moment bringing about a change. But actually what started with Abraham.
That's
and
so
the blessing
good.
of the nations there.
Yeah.
And so he's been slow cooking this whole thing. It's just in this moment, You're seeing
Yeah.
the fruition of all of it.
Yeah.
And then yet that's not even the full
Right.
Yeah.
finished
Right.
product. We're still not there yet.
We're still not
He's
there
still
yet.
working.
yeah.
And I just feel like the thing that is so encouraging about that is it's easy to overlook the ways that God is at work in your life. But it's these small moments, right?
I
It's a
love that.
conversation. It's your one act of obedience in a day. It's a meal with someone. It's a simple act of generosity. And God uses these small things that you often overlook as the erosion.
Yeah.
Like the water that's crashing, the waves that are crashing on the shore. And then the beauty is, if you look at someone's life over the long haul, you begin to see how the shore has changed,
Yeah.
right? And you can't perceive it maybe in the day or in the hour, but over time. And that's where I think that it reminds me of what Paul says in 2 Corinthians of being renewed
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
inner
man.
inner life is being renewed day by day.
Yeah.
And so,
good.
yeah, I feel like it's, one of my favorite things is just walking on the shore.
Yeah.
And we'll look for seashells. I'll pray. There's a couple psalms that I pray, and it's just some sweet times with the Lord. But I'm always struck by that, of just, hey, there's something that never changes, and it's that the waves keep
The
coming in.
waves keep coming.
And it's this meeting space.
Yeah.
And if you are one of the grains of sand, like, the waves of God's grace are crashing on you,
Yeah.
and yet the erosion happens little by little over time.
Dude, that is so good. There's so much to like pick apart in that. I think one of the things that hits me, and this is not even the big picture of what you were saying, but even the word erosion,
Yeah.
I think I feel something negative about that.
Yeah.
Even when you say that word, and I think a lot of us probably feel that way because I think we feel like something is dying.
Yeah.
But it is true. Something is dying.
Totally.
And sometimes it needs to die.
Yeah.
It has to die for God to make something new, the new shoreline, right? And
Yeah.
I think there's even something there that, like, I don't know, it's hitting my heart of like, man, we reject erosion because we think that God is taking something away from us, and what he's giving us is not better.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think we often view, even when it comes to God's will, a lot of times that is put in the realm of restriction
Yeah.
versus like he's actually giving us something, a new shoreline.
Yep. Dude, that's great. And I think if you personify it as there's this erosion happening to us, it's what needs to be eroded are the parts of us that don't look like Jesus.
That don't look like
right?
Jesus.
Like the sinful stuff in us, the things of the flesh.
Yeah.
Like that stuff actually
It
needs
needs
to be eroded.
Mm. So
It's good.
if you're standing on the beach of your inner life,
Yeah.
what's something over time that you've seen the Spirit
That's
erode?
a great question.
Yeah, I think for me, it would be selfishness and the greed. That's something where and that's early on, even in my faith journey, coming to faith. That I've shared this in sermons, but the first book outside of Scripture I ever read was Randy Alcorn's The Treasure Principle.
Yep.
And it really, like, I feel like the Lord really exposed a lot early on, and then it's been an ongoing, like, I have not arrived, I'm still selfish, you know, but you see that there's been this growth and a trajectory of becoming more like Jesus in that, to where it brings me great joy to give instead of just grab more for myself. And so, I think that would be one where when I look at the last almost 20 years now of following Jesus, where I say, oh yeah, there's been a steady just growth and eroding my greed to make me more like generous like God.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. Do you got anything?
No, man, I feel like you just dropped the bomb, and I'm trying to make sense of all the pieces that, but I think it's such a, for a lot of folks in Arizona, that's when we try and find a beach, right?
Yeah.
And it gives, even my family, we like to head to the beach during the summer too. That gives me a lot to think about. I'm going to try and put that into practice. So.
It'd be a fun, if you're going to the beach, I
Yeah.
think an encouragement would be to sit there and try to imagine what 20 years out looks like. And what are you asking the Spirit to erode in you?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to look at 20 years from now, 10 years from now,
Yeah.
and see that it is gone, changed because of the Spirit's like faithful day in, day out work in you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
The other fun thing, if you're there for a week,
Yeah.
is put something in the sand.
Oh.
You know, like some kind of landmark or marker that is not just high enough for the tide to take it, like if you dig a hole, because that'll change, but see if it's there at the end of the week.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Good.
I dig that, man. I dig that.
So that's
Yeah.
the beach.
That's,
wisdom
I love
of
it,
the
man.
beach. The
I
small,
love it. Yeah.
the small changes.
Love it.
And the beauty is that in life we get to participate in those small changes.
Right.
That as God is working on us through these small things, it means, I think for us and for me, is pay attention to those small moments. Like it is. It happens in a conversation. You know, like it's the things that an act of obedience.
Yeah.
Right? God is growing you through that, and don't overlook the small. And that's where I think we want the
Oh, yeah.
eruption, like this big grand moment of like
Yeah.
mountaintop with the Lord, but yet it might be the shoreline.
Yeah, man, I think we need that reminder over and over and over again in our rushed and hurried existence. So
I'll land on this because it's a pastor that and one of our professors that we like a lot, Zach Eswine, wrote a book that's been really formative for all of us. But he says that the way of the world is big, fast, and famous, but the way of Jesus is small, slow, and obscure.
yeah,
And I think that's summarizes the erosion at the
Yeah.
shore.
bam.
Yeah.
That's his book kickback.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you
name
go.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to sell a book too here.
All right, Jim.
All right.
Take us into the world of barbecue.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
The backdrop is for my vacation.
Yeah.
Went on a barbecue pilgrimage
Yeah, you did.
where we went to some of the best places in Central Texas, tried the best barbecue, and then tried to really spend some time reflecting on how God reveals himself through that process, and then telling stories of God's faithfulness around the table as we're enjoying it.
It's great.
So,
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, man. I had some envy looking at your Instagram
Yeah,
posts. I was
yeah.
like,
I had
dang, dude.
heartburn.
dude,
Yeah.
heartburn.
Heartburn and jealousy.
But I, just because I know people will ask me this,
Yeah.
I'll rank them.
Come on,
Yeah.
let's go.
All right. Number 1 was KG Barbecue.
Yeah,
All
this
right.
place sounded amazing.
This was it's an Egyptian Central Texas barbecue, and I think a lot of people would think it's gimmicky if you didn't master Central Texas barbecue and do it
Yeah.
better than everyone else, and master Middle Eastern food and then bring it together.
So the guy's Egyptian.
He's Egyptian.
I mean,
Wow.
this sounds like Jim's dream restaurant.
Yeah,
Like, it's
it
hard to
is.
believe a place like
For
this
sure.
actually exists.
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
You're like, come on, dude. You made this up.
Yeah, it's that was number 1. What is interesting is some of the reflection I had on that.
Yeah.
Is that I am in this adjacent connection to both Texas and the Middle East.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I've lived there, each place for a few years, but neither of them are my place. But there's a longing to actually identify with both of those places.
Okay.
And I think some of what I felt is like, why do I want to be from the Middle East or from Texas more than from Arizona? Is I think what it is it's a nostalgia for a place I've never fully experienced, which is the garden. It's like that there is a place out there that I actually belong to, but I've never actually been.
Wow.
And so I idealize these places, and those aren't actually the places I'm longing for. I'm longing for the new creation. I'm longing for the way things were meant to be.
But you'll
all right.
take San Antonio.
But no, but I think actually, honestly, that is the problem. If I were to say the way to solve that
Yeah.
is to just move to San
Move, yeah,
Antonio.
Yeah.
Immediately, I've got now San Antonio problems, and
Yeah.
I'm looking at North Carolina, right?
Yeah, for sure.
That sounds about
And I did
right.
live in San Antonio, and it didn't solve any of that. So, all right, number 1 was that. Number 2 was, I'd say, Hayes County Barbecue.
Okay.
That's where I had a great encounter. Was praying with the pit master there. Number 3 was Terry Black's.
Okay.
Number 4 was Franklin Barbecue.
Okay.
Franklin Barbecue came in number 4. Number 5 was 2M. It was like a Mexican food / Texas barbecue mix. And then the last 3 were all the Lockhart places that have the long history and tradition. So that one would have gone Kreitz, Terry Black's, Smitty's.
Okay.
So that was my 8. So if you're in Central Texas, I've got some recommendations for you.
Hey, a lot of people travel to Texas.
Yeah.
So this is a labor of love, man.
Yeah.
But, I've got dozens of reflections on barbecue, but I'll just focus in on one. And
you can give us more than one.
What's that?
I think you should give us like 3.
Well,
You already gave us 1.
all right.
At least 2 more.
I think one of the things that has just gripped me is when I think about the sacrificial system
Sure.
in the Old Testament.
Yeah.
That the free will offerings was when people would bring their best animal and bring it to the temple, and it would be sacrificed. And after sacrifice is put on the altar, it's burned, and the priest would get some of it. You and your family would get some of it. And some of it would be completely burned, symbolically giving that to the Lord. So what they're essentially doing, the free will offering is not to atone for sin. It's not something you had to do.
Right.
It's something that you said, I just love God and want to make a sacrifice as an act of worship to him.
That's cool.
It is literally saying, I love God so much I want to make him a brisket. I want to have a barbecue.
Totally.
And it's having a barbecue with God.
That's cool.
That's
man.
the way that they would
Mm.
worship. And so the same smells that you would smell at like the best smokehouse are the same smells you would smell at the temple.
That's cool.
Isn't that cool?
You think they seasoned it like that, though?
Yeah, have you done any
I don't
research
know.
on how they would have their cooking technique? That's next.
I think it would have. I'm pretty sure they were going straight over the fire.
Yeah. What kind of wood would they have used in that region?
I don't know. That's worth.
You know what's sad though? Why do I assume that their food is not good?
Yeah,
Well,
I think it's bad too.
That may not be true.
I guarantee it was pretty good, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, you
think
kinda
about what they're
like,
working
oh,
with.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're saying bring your absolute best animal,
Right.
right? Yeah, that's gonna be
It's
great.
gonna be good. I
Yeah.
think about it as just like plain, utilitarian,
Yeah.
functional.
some kind of seasoning.
Some
I mean,
sort
there's
of
a lot
seasoning.
seasoning.
Right.
Yeah.
Even in
Yeah.
Scripture.
I mean, definitely salt. A good Texas brisket.
You don't
only
need
has
much.
salt and pepper on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And here's the interesting thing with that. So if that's in the back of your mind,
Sure.
then you go to Romans 12,
Mm.
and it says that we are to be a living sacrifice.
Yeah.
Then that means that we are like the brisket
Mm-hmm.
that climbs up onto the altar and is set on fire for the worship of God.
Yeah.
So it's not just that you bring something, it's that you bring the whole of yourself as an act of worship to God.
Yeah.
And so it has me thinking about every time I see like a good brisket that's actually on the smoker,
Yeah.
it makes me think about the full surrendering yourself
That's
into
good.
worship, and also what the formation process looks like.
Hmm.
Do you guys know what the most important ingredient in a good brisket is?
Patience.
The meat.
Time.
Time. That's what I said. Patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
It's patience.
a brisket is one of the toughest
Yeah.
parts of meat. It is miserable to try
Right.
to eat that if you just quickly heat it up.
Yeah, that's what I was
Because
thinking.
it's
There's
not
a
like
connection
a-
between what you guys are
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
It's not like
Formation.
an expensive cut of meat.
It's not an expensive cut of meat.
Yeah.
It's what it is it's filled with tough collagen
Yes.
that needs to hit a certain temperature for a certain period of time
Yeah.
before it starts melting down
Dang,
into
bro.
gelatin.
Yep.
I love this.
And that's what makes it so satisfying. And so really the two most important ingredients are, like a good brisket, they only put salt and pepper on.
Yeah.
But those aren't the two main ingredients. The main ingredients are time and heat. And you could say smoke too.
Sure.
But if you think about formation and you think about those three things, you think time,
Yeah.
that actually what we need is a sustained period of time of God forming. Very aligned with what you were saying, right?
Yeah, the beach and the brisket.
You need time for those hard parts, those collagenous parts of you to melt down and surrender to Jesus. Right?
Yeah.
The second ingredient is heat.
Yeah.
Is that you could put that thing on the smoker for 100 hours, but it's going to do nothing. Unless it has
Yeah.
heat.
Heat.
Yeah.
And actually, if you correlate that to like the challenges and complexities and hardships of
Sure.
life, that is what cooks us and makes us.
Yeah.
If you
that's
never go through
good.
anything
That's
hard and it's
good.
all just theoretical,
That's
you're not
good.
being formed.
That's good.
And then the third one is
It's erosion.
is the
Yeah,
smoke.
That's good. Yeah.
And
That's
how
good.
the smoke just flavors everything and covers everything. And I think about that as like the work of the Spirit.
Yeah.
And so if you have the presence of the Spirit, the reality of challenges, and then time, that's how we are formed.
Oh.
Yeah.
And then what comes out is this feast that is a
I love
pleasing
that.
aroma to the Lord, And
Dude,
so
that's great.
yeah.
This is the biblical barbecue theology that you were explaining to that guy.
Yeah,
you
bro, this is
literally, I was explaining this to some of the workers in the
yeah.
in
This
the
is so good.
in the barbecue places, and was sharing it was basically sharing the gospel through the lens of barbecue.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, the other big one that that I didn't mention, and I'll be short on this one, but it's just the most obvious one, is that the pattern of life in a fallen world is that things can only flourish if something else dies first.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
That
All around us.
yeah,
Yeah.
that we're not in the garden anymore.
Yeah. Totally.
And so we all die
Mhm.
unless something else dies first, so that
Yes.
we can be sustained.
Yep.
That and whenever you have like a big plate of meat,
Yeah.
it's proclaiming the gospel that something went before and had to die so that you could have life.
That's so good.
Yeah.
And
That's so good.
It is proclaiming the truth of the world that life only comes through the death of another.
Yeah.
And its most beautiful and extreme is that we only have life through the death of Christ.
That's right.
Man,
That's right.
everyone's going to eat brisket different now.
Yeah, that's right.
That's rich.
We'll never look
Yeah.
at a building the same. We'll never walk on the beach the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
We'll never eat brisket the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
No, I think if there's like a thread all through the three of these, it is time. Like
That's-
even when
yeah.
for a building to change, I think that's one of the main things that he says is like, man, when you shortcut the process and don't look at these layers, you make a quick change,
Yeah.
right? That
Mhm.
ends up with the building being disjointed in some way,
Mhm.
right? Like it has to change slowly through these layers over time. The waves have to do their work over
Yeah.
time. The food, the brisket has to cook over time. And I know we talk about patience and slowing down, even when we think about Abraham's story,
Yeah.
right? Like there's the theme of time there. Like God's not just being slow for the sake of slowness, right? Like he's doing something there for the sake of formation. And I think, man, that's a powerful reminder through these
Yeah.
three things.
I think it's really helpful that there is that commonality because even before we came on here, we
We
didn't
didn't even
talk
think about that. Yeah.
But this is where like you can actually learn wisdom from God's order in creation.
Totally.
Because we have our own perception of time, and we have a very skewed view of time in America because we live in an instant society.
That's right.
And we have all been conditioned by that. like from the time we're kids. Everything is instantaneous. And in an instant society, like patience means something biblically to God, but then we interpret that maybe differently in an instant society of what it means to be patient. What it means to be patient is like there's 2 cars ahead of me in the drive-through. And it's like it's still pretty instant, and we're talking like buildings, brisket, the beach, and we're saying like, but the rest of creation doesn't operate instantaneously.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
And so like that's where I think the wisdom of like looking at God's world to say, hey, what can we actually learn wisdom wise when it comes to we're absolutely indoctrinated in an instant society.
Yeah, yeah. And the fact that these things tend to show up in all these different domains of life is a pretty good indicator that this is the way that God has made the world to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
That the best things come through the slowness of time, because a kiddie pool, a hot dog, and like a little pop-up.
A pop-up,
is gonna at a vendor.
As soon as the wind comes.
As soon as the wind comes, like all 3 of these things are not doing the same thing of what we talked about here.
Yeah.
I was looking up. I was trying to think of like the proverb that I think it's Proverbs 29. Do you see a man who's hasty in his words? There's more hope for a fool than for him, right? Like, not just as when it comes to our speech, but I think all around in creation we see that reality play out. So
that's good stuff.
Man, we didn't even plan for that. It just came together like that.
Yeah,
I guess God's
Yeah.
trying to teach us something.
Yeah,
you
I
know?
guess so.
Real-time conversation.
Real-time conversation. All right.
Yeah.
Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up.
That's good. All right. Well, guys, hopefully this was helpful. And as you go out and travel and do all the things this summer, there's clearly a message here around slowing down. God has taken us on a walk, not a sprint, right? And so trusting him through each year, through each season, that he is at work, even if we don't always see and feel it. And so anyway, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time right here on the All of Life podcast. Peace.